Because the government doesn't even know what altcoins they hold, I made a video yesterday asking, will Ripple hand over 45% of its XRP to the US government? Because we've seen a wide variety of people on Twitter talk about how they could donate part of its monthly escrow to the US government. Even lawyer Jeremy Hogan saying it is possible that Ripple could satisfy the judgment against it by transferring the same amount of XRP to a federal XRP stockpile address. And yet people put stuff in the comments like can't watch clickbait titles, don't lie to us, which is genuinely confusing for me because I don't know at what point in this video I lied to you guys when I'm reporting what very qualified people in the space like Jeremy Hogan are saying. And look, I get it. I can understand how some people don't actually read a title and they don't see the question mark at the end of the title and they think it's a statement. But I'm simply here reporting on the news, clarifying the facts and delivering you guys with the information that I'm seeing to help you come to your own conclusion. So a lot of people, they don't watch the entire video. They just make assumptions based on a title that is a question. And because we get a lot of questions in these videos, we address them in the titles and in the content of the video. For example, a major question that people had was, did Donald Trump really have plans to add Cardano, Solana, and XRP? Or was he just mentioning them because they were a part of the top 5? Well, Linda P. Jones says she doesn't think David Sachs is walking back what Trump said about XRP. She thinks he is trying to unite the cryptosphere to get legislation passed, which is also what Brad Garlinghouse has been trying to do. The Bitcoin maxis are dead set against XRP or any crypto other than Bitcoin being a part of the reserve. So saying it was a top 5 asset was downplaying XRP to help pacify the maxis. The two separate reserve stockpiles are because the plans for the future of the assets are very different. In the Bitcoin reserve, you have the Federal Reserve waste pile where the fiat dollars will be discarded and will go to DAI. The digital asset stockpile is where the interoperable digital assets will be that will run the new financial system. The XRP assets in the stockpile will come from the judge's ruling of the $125 million fine paid in XRP. The US Treasury will take over from the Fed. The old Fed dollars will no longer be used and a new Treasury note will replace it. This will happen globally and each country will have new money from the Treasury, not central banks. They will have an asset-backed digital version running on the XRP ledger. And according to Jacob King here, Michael Saylor likely spent millions of dollars lobbying Donald Trump to say, never sell your Bitcoin. But instead, Trump responded by saying this.
Fortunately, in recent years, the U.S. government has foolishly sold tens of thousands of additional Bitcoin that were worth billions and billions of dollars had they not sold them, but they did sell them, mostly during the Biden administration. Not a good thing to have done. From this day on, America will follow the rule that every Bitcoin knows very well, never sell your Bitcoin. That's a little phrase that they have. I don't know if that's right or not. Who the hell knows, right?
So this was his reaction here. Who knows? Maybe he needs exit liquidity from retail investors to buy Bitcoin at the top so he can inevitably sell going into a bear market. So we'll see if Michael Saylor holds up to his word and doesn't sell his Bitcoin. But either way, David Sachs is saying the US government crypto holdings will be audited to find out what digital assets we actually have.
So that's the plan with the 200,000 Bitcoin that we believe are in the possession of the federal government. I say we believe because no one really knows for sure because we never had a proper audit. So that's one of the first things that this executive order provides, that we're going to do a full government-wide audit to find out what digital assets we actually have so they can be safeguarded and moved into a strategy that maximizes their long-term value.
So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel to see what comes out in that audit because we're going to be covering it here on YouTube and also on Twitter as well too when you follow us at Bullrunners HQ. Unfortunately, XRP didn't hit $5 by March 1st for our $100 XRP giveaway, but we decided to give away 100 XRP anyways to Zach Smith here on Twitter. And we're going to try this one more time. If XRP hits $5 before the end of this month, by April 1st, we're going to give away 100 XRP, which is $500 to another person who likes this post and is following us. So there's only 157 people that like this post. So worst case scenario, you take 30 seconds of your time to go and like the post and you don't win. You have nothing to lose. Best case scenario is you win $500 if XRP hits $5. And who knows, maybe if XRP doesn't hit $5, we might just give away 100 XRP anyways. So go give us a follow on Twitter, like that post, and hopefully you win. To summarize what happened yesterday at the White House Crypto Summit here from Yoni inside of Altcoin Pro University, it turned out to be more of a nothing burger, more so confirmations of existing policies than a game changer. Here's a few key takeaways. Trump's administration aims to use stablecoins to keep the US dollar dominant. A new government reserve will hold non-Bitcoin assets. So there's two different reserves here, one for Bitcoin, one for a stockpile of other crypto assets. And we're going to see what that audit discloses to see how much of Solana, Ethereum, or XRP will be added to it, on top of the fine from the SEC versus Ripple case for $125 million. Regulatory clarity is incoming, and they're pushing for stablecoin legislation to pass ASAP. They're ending Operation Choke Point 2.0. It could mean easier banking access for crypto companies. And on top of that, US regulators say banks can engage in crypto activities right now. So from fighting crypto to fully embracing it, the tide is turning right now. The Office of the Comptroller of Currency took action to reaffirm that a range of cryptocurrency activities are permissionable in the federal banking system. So they just confirmed that crypto asset custody, certain stablecoin activities, and participation in independent node verification networks such as distributed ledgers are permissionable for national banks and federal savings associations. So that wasn't mentioned at the White House, which is massive, but basically inside the summit, Trump met with all the industry leaders. They praised him for his support on crypto, and it just ended with no groundbreaking announcement. So despite all the hype, it was just basically a nothing burger. No new policies, no big surprises, just more of what we already knew. But still, the overall tone seems bullish, and the real discussions are likely happening behind closed doors, which is why they cut off the stream about halfway through. Now, here's some bigger piece of news that we need to talk about because this is directly affecting the crypto market, which is tariffs. Here's what Trump just said recently.
We're on time with the tariffs, and it seems like that's moving along very rapidly. We've been mistreated very badly by many countries, not just Canada and Mexico. We've been taken advantage of. We were led by, in some cases, fools, because anybody that would sign documents like they signed, where they were able to take advantage of the American people, like has happened over the last long period of time, except for a little 4-year period that took place 4 years ago. But anybody that would agree to allow this to happen to our country should be ashamed of themselves. No, the tariffs are going forward on time, on schedule. This is an abuse that took place for many, many years. And I'm not even blaming the other countries that did this. I blame our leadership for allowing it to happen. I mean, you know, who can blame them if they made these great deals with the United States, took advantage of the United States on manufacturing, on just about everything. Every aspect that you can imagine, they took advantage of. I look at some of these agreements, I'd read them at night, and I'd say, who would ever sign a thing like this? So the tariffs will go forward, yes, and we're going to make up a lot of territory. All we want is reciprocal. We want reciprocity. We want to have the same. So if somebody charges us, we charge them. It's very simple, but it'll be very good for our country. Our country will be extremely liquid and rich again.
Canada, Mexico, and China already had tariffs on the United States before Trump made these announcements. For example, Canada had a 25% tariff on steel, 10% on aluminum, 7% whiskey, 10% on prepared foods, 8% wool, 3% on specific pumps, 5% on certain chemicals, 6.5% on machinery parts. And then Mexico had 20% on pork. Then you got cheese, steel, apples, chemicals. So China had 25% on soybeans and on automobiles. And on virtually everything, these countries have been taking advantage of the United States. So for people that aren't paying attention to this, here's a list of the most outrageous tariffs Canada imposed on the USA. 263% on chicken, 179% on turkey, 175% on butter, 165% on dairy, and the list goes on with fish, milk, cheese, beef, pork, eggs, flour, wheat, orange juice, peanut butter. So it's no wonder why Trump is blasting the European Union and other countries for their tariffs on America, because it's been a one-way street here where they can take advantage of us here in the United States, when in reality, it just simply needs to be fair trade.
Our country, from an economic standpoint, a financial standpoint, and a trade standpoint, has been absolutely ripped off by almost every country in the world. Canada, Mexico, and then you just go right down the line. India charges us massive tariffs, massive. You can't even sell anything into India. It's almost restrictive. It is restrictive. You know, we do very little business inside. They've agreed, by the way, they want to cut their tariffs way down now because somebody's finally exposing them for what they've done. And same thing with China, same thing with a lot of other countries. And the EU has been a terrible abuser of this country. I mean, the EU was formulated in order to take advantage of the United States, and they have taken it, but they're not taking advantage when I'm in charge. So Sometimes you'll hear some negative things. It's always from outside countries. America will be very strong. And, if I'm a foreign country, they're going to do fine. But they can't do like they used to do, because we're going to bring back our business into this country. We need it from a job standpoint. We need it from even just a psychological standpoint. Think of it, 90,000 factories are gone since the beginning of NAFTA.
Listen to what Jerome Powell had to say about Trump's tariff remarks during his recent speech at the University of Chicago.
We see this in both market and survey-based measures, and survey respondents, both consumers and businesses, are mentioning tariffs as a driving factor. Looking ahead, the new administration is in the process of implementing significant policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. It is the net effect of these policy changes that will matter for the economy and for the path of monetary policy. Uncertainty around the changes and their likely effects remains high. Policy is not on a preset course. If the economy remains strong but inflation does not continue to move sustainably toward 2%, we can maintain policy restraint for longer. If the labor market were to weaken unexpectedly or inflation were to fall more quickly than anticipated, we can ease policy accordingly. Our current policy stance is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties that we face in pursuing both sides of our mandate.
So to summarize his entire speech, he talked about conventional view on price spikes. If tariffs cause one-time spikes in prices, the Fed won't typically react with policy changes or interest rate adjustments, as it would reduce unemployment and economic activity unnecessarily. The Fed would look through such temporary effects. Number 2, uncertainty around tariffs are still unclear, and the effects on importers, retailers, and consumers will only become evident over time, because this just doesn't play out over a 24-hour period. This needs to be signed into effect, and then it takes a long period of time to take place. So the price action on the charts is not based on the actual event. It's just based on the words. So think of the markets like an overly emotional teenager that react to their parents saying you need to clean their room. So number 3, when tariffs might matter, the Fed would pay closer attention if tariffs lead to persistent inflation, larger than expected price increases, or shifts in long-term inflation expectations, because their goal has been to return to the Fed's 2% target after a period of high inflation that we saw back in 2021, 2022. And number 4, broader economic outlook, because tariffs are just one part of the economic picture. Other factors like growth and policies like tax cuts, immigration changes, regulatory shifts under Trump are also going to massively influence the Fed's decision to adjust interest rates. And number 5, gradualism. While uncertainty is high, Powell favors cautious, gradual approach to policy changes. So it's going to be in response to inflation and unemployment as a part of their dual mandate. So if we look over the past year for United States inflation, we can see since September 2024, inflation has risen from 2.4% to 3% in January. And February's numbers should be coming out here soon. So if inflation continues to tick up, they might keep interest rates higher for longer. Now, one thing that's important to know is if we look over the past 5 years, you guys can see back in 2020, right into 2021, inflation started to spike from 1.7 to 2.6. And then by April, it's at 4.2, 5%. And it got all the way up to 9.1% by June of 2022. So if I bring up the chart for you guys right here, you can see after COVID, when inflation was all the way down here, very, very low, it rose after that alongside the bull market. It wasn't until the bull market peaked out, inflation continued to the upside, well, then the market started to sell off. And it wasn't until like June that inflation dropped while the market was almost virtually at a bottom. So while inflation goes up, that's actually shown that it's been good for the crypto bull market as we look at last bull market cycle. So where's inflation right now? Well, inflation is relatively low at just 3% compared to what it was back here by April of 2021 at 4.2%. So if inflation starts to tick back up again, in my opinion, that would be good news for the crypto market, because inflation gets higher, costs of goods and services and grocery stores go up. If the tariff war continues, then where do you think the wealthy are going to start moving their money? And even average everyday Americans, they're going to start to realize that the only way to beat high inflation is to invest. Where are they going to invest? Well, they're going to invest in the asset class of the future, which is the crypto market. Look at what Trump has been doing recently. I mean, he just hosted a crypto summit at the freaking White House, guys. So the net verdict here is in the short term, it's probably neutral to bad, obviously, because of the uncertainty that this creates, but the diminishing returns or the diminishing effect of the sell-offs as the market's already priced it in. In crypto, I think that's just going to get less and less and less as people get numb to the tariff news. But the bad news is this causes higher costs for mining hardware and an economic drag that could outweigh any flight to safety bump. and everyday consumers are going to have to spend more on these goods and services. In the long term, though, it could be potentially good if tariffs erode trust in fiat currency, the US dollar, or disrupt global finance enough. Crypto's appeal as an alternative would grow. So it's a mixed bag, honestly, right now. Crypto is too detached from physical trade to feel tariffs directly, other than just the words that are spoken, but it's not immune to the economic chaos that can be unleashed.